Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. This is week 4 of our ruler week. Super excited. Um, okay, so let's just do a recap of. Boy, that glare is really bothering me. Okay, let's do a quick recap of what we went over, right? So, the first week we went over our straight rulers, what we could use them for, all of that fun stuff. Then we went over curves. I freaking love curves. So that was the Pro Echoes and the Pro Circle rulers. And then last week we went over the rulers that we can do fill work for. So one of the things, and you guys have to excuse me, I went to the eye doctor today. And so I had my eyes dilated, and so they feel all funky. And yeah, so very weird. Anyway, that was a side note. So I'm like, can I see? And anyway, so one of the things that I love to talk about is obviously design. I have the Design Academy, I have the Design Society. So I think that for most people, and I know this was true when I first got my machine, I would look at the rulers and I just saw rulers. I didn't know, I knew how to use them, but I didn't really know how to create like designs with them. So it was very simple stuff. I would do cross hatching, or I would do curved cross hatching. I would, have like maybe a clamshell for the borders or swags for the borders, things like that. Um, but I think it's really important to look at your rulers and know actually how to design with your rulers in mind. So I do a very deep dive into the academy for that topic. It's all about how I look at a quilt, break it down, and design for it. So if you like the quilts that I'm going to show you, I would definitely consider going into the academy. I do have a two-pay option if you're at all interested. And if you have any questions, you can also let me know those as well. I'm not going to keep you long. I do want to remind you all of the rulers will be 15% off through this weekend. So that will end on Sunday night. So if you've been eyeing any rulers up, now would be a really good time to get them. I do not put them on sale often because the price of acrylic has increased, and I really haven't increased my prices the way they're increasing the price of acrylic. So, anyway, let's get started. I'm going to show you some quilts, and I'm just going to kind of point out like where I use the rulers and kind of like why I do what I do. So, if you have questions, just pop them over into the comments, put a Q in front of them so that I can kind of scroll back through. Before I do get started, I am lazy. I do minimal marking. Most of my marking is done with a Marvy marker, which is an air soluble marker. And it's very temporary. So unless I'm really have something intricate that I need to mark, then I'm using a blue washout marker. So keep that in mind, and I will try and kind of tell you what I used where, if I can remember. I don't always remember it. Okay, so everybody cross your fingers and let's all hope that my tech is working. Okay, so I got to do some lights here. I got to switch my camera. So let's get to it. All right, here we go. The first one. Can you guys hear me okay? I totally forgot to put my microphone on. So hold on. Let me see if I can quickly get that set up. Okay, is that better? I just put my microphone on. Hopefully that is better. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, let me just change my lighting. Okay, so this is actually one of my quilts from my book. It's called Lucky Blooms. I absolutely had so much fun with this one with all of that nice white open space. So I'm going to pull the middle up so that you guys can kind of see this. I talked the other day about the spine rulers, and it's that nice S shape. And so that's actually what I used to create this. So I only used a portion, and I don't even remember which one it was this one. So this is the one that I used. And what I do is I just put a mark as to where I actually use the ruler so that I'm getting the same curve on all of it, right? So you'll see here I've got blue marks on this one. It wasn't obviously for this particular quilt, but again, this was the shape that I wanted. And I do pre-plan out all of the quilting before I even load my quilt. It's really important. And I start from the inside and I work my way out. So I create what I call the dividing lines. So if you look at this, and I know quite a few of you have been through the academy, so you can attest to this, right? So all of my dividing lines are these and these out here, and then all out here as well. So, and then everything else, the dividing lines, let me backtrack for a second. The dividing lines are like, they create a secondary design on your quilt. They are created first, but they create the secondary design in most cases. So I use them to divide up my open area into manageable sections. It's kind of like that old saying, you can't eat an elephant all in one bite. What I have found with all of my teaching is that people will look at a quilt that has a lot of open space and they actually panic. And that was me in the very beginning. I would get heart palpitations. I'd be like, oh my gosh, where's the nearest chocolate? I must have chocolate. And so back in 2006, that's when I kind of decided that this was the way that I was going to design, and this was the way I was going to quilt. And it has sustained me now for 19 years, which is pretty incredible. So again, you'll see all the dividing lines. All of this is pre-planned out before I load my quilt. Okay, one down. All right, this I can't get the whole thing in it. There's a lot going on in this particular quilt. This is red velvet. This is one of the quilts that I had a bleeding episode with all of this red. I was able to get the bleeds out, but let's just take a look at the Dresden. And I think you guys can see that. Let me just kind of zoom in just a wee bit so you get a better view of it. So you can see, right, all of these dividing lines. And the dividing lines are always echoed, and I do not put anything in them, right? I want them to be that negative space. So those were my dividing lines here. When I design, remember, I always start in the center. So let me show you the center. Okay, I think that you guys can see the center or part of it. So you can see I have this star that I created, and then I created stars kind of off of it with my dividing lines, right? So I've got that. Then I outlined, boxed them out so that that was my center, okay? Again, when I do it, the dividing lines are the first thing that I am designing. I don't do any other designing until I have all of those dividing lines all done. And then I actually go to the quilt and I quilt those. So when I'm choosing, because I'm drawing on a smaller piece of paper, all of these lines, you're not drawing to scale. So when I move over to the quilt, I cannot be married to the actual shape, right? So if I look at this, like it might be slightly more, a slightly deeper curve or a slightly more shallow curve, depending upon the actual rulers that I have. So when we talked about the curved rulers, that was one of the reasons why I was saying it is so nice to have multiple different kinds of curves, because you never know when you're going to need a shallow curve. You never know when you're going to need a deeper curve. So again, super important. You'll see, because last week we talked about fills, I quilt most of my quilts to death, right? So I've got my curved cross hatching in here. And when we talked last week, it's important to make sure that your curves are kind of all going in the same direction. So I wanted to make sure that these were going in the same direction as my other Dresdens, just in case anybody like kind of gave it a really good look. This is the Proline ruler that I love so much. This is the Proline 8, I believe. Again, love that. If I pull over, you can see it doesn't end on the interior of the quilt either. So I do it in the border, and so very similar. Hold on, let me pull this over. And let me know if you guys can't see that for some reason. And I'll try to angle it a little bit better, but it looks like you can. So you'll see in this border, I came around with a partial circle here, and then I did, with that same curve, I did some curved cross hatching here and some feather work in here. When I looked at this border, again, if the border is really busy, I'm definitely not going to spend a whole lot of time, because you're not going to see a whole heck of a lot on a busy border. But this border was nice. It was red. I knew that something would really stand out. So that's when I decided, similar to the other quilt that I showed you, I have this double kind of swag here that I really had fun designing all the way up into the corner. So I used different, obviously different curves here, different curve here, all the different curves here as well. So again, super important that you have a variety of curves, whether they be circles or arcs, to choose from. But again, red velvet is one of my favorites. I do quilt things to death. So that is red velvet. Okay. So this one I showed the other day, and it's just kind of like a fun quilt that I did on a whim. I don't do a lot of quilting with contrasting thread. Better late than never. Oh, hi, Carolyn. I don't do a lot with contrasting thread. I typically like mine to blend. So this was actually something that I was doing for a class I was teaching, just to show how, you know, different threads work. But again, if we are to look at this, oops, you can, I've got a quilt under there. There we go. You can see, and eventually you're able to really pick out the dividing lines, right? So this was an experiment here. Don't love this. This was a 1/2 inch in my dividing lines, and typically they're a 1/4 of an inch. Don't like this. If I were to do it again, I'd either make it a 1/4 of an inch, or I would come in and put in another line, so there'd be 3 lines there. So again, I've got this curve here. I used the spine ruler to do this. And then this fun shape out here as well. So a lot of different curves were used. The other thing I would probably do differently on this is quilt in these, but it was a sample. So live and learn, right? Had fun with this little kind of outside area here. And to be honest with you, I think I used a ruler for the bottom part, and then I didn't want all of this open space, so when I did the top, I came in and put this little swirl. So again, the pebbling is all freehand. That is definitely not something that I am using a ruler for. Even these little, I don't know what to call them, they're little, little pebbles amongst my stippling. Those are all freehand as well. And then I love this border. I just worked off of my flying geese with the straight ruler. So a lot of fun with this particular one. And then I did show this one as well the other day, but it's a nice small little sample. So you can see, like, I do try to repeat elements within the quilt to kind of give it a little bit more of a cohesive feel. So you'll see I've got circle, 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 circle. I definitely like symmetrical quilts. And so those are the types of quilts that I create. On every quilt, on every sample for sure, I always, for whatever reason, forget to quilt an area. Well, this one has 2. I forgot to cross hatch here, and I forgot to cross hatch here. So I wasn't going to go back and do it because it was just a sample, but I always like, okay, well, I did 2 this time. So, but again, you can see, like, I used the diamondy shape in all of my 9 patches as well. And then did my 1/2 inch cross hatching in my border. Again, not a super busy border, but I figured I'm just going to texturize that border. I'm not going to try and fight with the fabric there. If you have busy fabric and you have something that you want to actually practice, a busy border is a good way to do that, because nobody's going to actually see what was in or any kind of mistakes that you may have made. And I wanted to show you this one too. This is very large. I don't normally make big quilts, but this was one of them. So this was Oh My Bleeding Heart. This was another quilt that I had some bleeding issues with all of this pink, which again breaks my heart that I had some issues. You can still see a little bit of the bleed in the very center. But again, if you're looking at it, these would be my dividing lines. So I put these in first, and then I put in my straight lines within this, right? When we talked last week, I told you about the pebble rulers. So I do use those quite a bit. So you'll see I use the pebble ruler here, because when you want one circle, you want that one circle to be perfect. If I'm actually doing pebbling, see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Move that a little bit. Yeah, so when I want one circle, I want it to be perfect. If I'm doing pebbling, I'm not concerned about perfect, right? But these actually really do stand out, and if they weren't a perfect round circle, you would definitely notice that. So along the lines of the pebble rulers, I also use the pebble ruler, and I don't know if you can see it on this side, but I loved this. This was a busy, again, a busy border. I didn't want to fight with this border at all as far as the fabric, so I just wanted to texturize it. So I actually marked out, and for me to mark out is a big deal. I marked out a grid, and then I used one of the pebble rulers to actually go ahead and do this design throughout it. So again, you can't really see it from the front. You get that texture, but you can definitely see it from the back. You'll also notice, again, it's much easier to see it on the back. I've got my beadboard there. So again, this is like one of my favorite quilts. Let me see if I can get to the middle of it. I don't know if I'll be able to, but there we go. I think I got there. I did. All right, let me zoom back out. So there is the center of the quilt. And again, when I design, I'm starting in the center. So literally I started in with this. I've got my circle here. I then repeated that circle again out here. You'll notice I repeated this little beadboard. So I have it here, I have it out here, and then I have it out in the border as well. These little curly cues were just freehand. But again, like I've used so many different rulers on this quilt. I do try not to use more than 5 because then I start getting like, oh, which one did I use? And I try and be really good about marking and taking notes about which one I used, but I'm not as good as I like to think I am at actually doing that. So yeah. I do have these little curls out here. These curls here, I actually marked these. I made like a little template and then I marked these because I did want them to be fairly symmetrical. So I thought was pretty important. So I marked them and then I used a ruler to follow those lines because I cannot follow a line to save my life. So I needed the ruler to help guide me. My feathers are all freehand. You'll notice they're definitely different. Like these are a little bigger than these over here. I like the way that looks. I do have a computer that if I wanted to use a computer, I could, but I absolutely love doing that stuff freehand. So the combination for me of freehand and ruler work is just my love. It's what I love to do. So, so those are the quilts that I had to show you today. Let me know. I'm going to scroll through and see if you guys have any questions. Hold on, let me come back to you. Woo, bright spotlight on me. Let me go turn that on. So if you like this type of quilting, if this is something that you're like, ooh, I really, really like this, you really might want to consider joining the Design Academy because it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back up to the top just to see what we've got. Everybody says audio is good. Yay! My new microphone is working. We love that. Hi, Shoshana. Perfect. I know it's hot everywhere. So I've got Jerusalem. I've got France. Oh my gosh, I love that. Got Colorado. Yeah. So Marion asks if I do all of the lines first. So I do. I do all of the lines first. Those are what I design first. They are what I quilt first. And I do go more in depth in the Design Academy on why, how, you know, how to create those lines and make them look good. So all of that information is in the Design Academy. Oh, I have Germany too. I have a lot of international. I love to see that. Yay! Okay, Betsy asks, how do you do the math so the half arch is just inside the big, come out even around the thin? Yeah. So typically how I do that is I will start in the middle of the border and work my way out. So by the time I get out, I'm looking, am I going to have enough room to do a full one, or am I going to have to make some tweaks in those corners? I'm pretty sure the red quilt, like I was able to kind of fudge the half circles all the way around. But let's just say that like I got there and I'm like, ooh, there's really not enough room. Then I might do something where it's like more of like an arch shape versus a half circle. And I would just make sure that that's what was in the corner. So that's kind of how I handle that. I try not to do math because that's just, I just don't want to do math. No. Okay, question. Could you have filled in the missing crosshatch with your domestic? 100%, Betsy. I totally could have filled in with my domestic machine if I wanted to. Again, it was a sample. So typically once it's off, I'm like, well, that mistake's there to stay. If it was a show quilt, I would probably go back. If it was a gift, I'd go back and fix it. But it's something that now I can point out and go, see, I make mistakes. I forget to quilt stuff. So yeah, but yeah, you could definitely do it on your domestic. Oh, thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. She says the secondary patterns are gorgeous. And they're so easy to create, which is the fun part, you know? Yeah. Noreen asks, is this done on a sit-down long arm? This is actually done on a standing long arm, but I do have a lot of students in the academy that are on a sit-down long arm and also a domestic, because the actual class is not the quilting of it. The actual class is the designing of it. So so it doesn't matter what, you know, what your route is to get it quilted. Yay, Margie, I'm so happy to see that. I love that. Well, congrats on your long arm. Don't be shy. If you have questions, just, you know, hop on my Facebook page, and, you know, if I can't answer you, like I have, like, there's so many talented people on that page. So a lot of fun. So again, if you like this type of quilting and you think that it is beyond you, I'm here to tell you it is not. Once you learn it, you're going to be like, oh, you will never look at quilts the same way ever again. So make sure you check out the Design Academy. It's right on my website, lisahkaye.com. And then don't forget that the rulers are all 15% off till Sunday night. So if you're looking to get them, that's the deadline for that. Don't put them on sale often. And for those of you that placed orders, I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. And don't be shy. If you have questions, I am always here for you guys. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you later.